Okay, so welcome to College Pathways 101. This is an introduction to planning for post-high school education. And before we get going into the content, let's see, I have to get back on here to make this go forward. I wanted to introduce a few people. We have a lot of new counselors in the counseling department. Super excited. We have a new, relatively young team who have been making great connections with students and parents, and a few of them are here tonight. Brianna Trevino is actually not new this year, so a lot of you probably know her, especially if she was your counselor last year. But I will let the counselors introduce themselves. I'll accept Maddie Malott unless she snuck in. I haven't seen her in the admits. So Madison Malott is our counselor, school counselor for students A through D. And then Alex Linkard-Galpin is here, and he has students with the last name E through K. Hey, Alec, do you want to pop up and say hi? Hopefully, if you unmute, you'll pop up on the screen, and so everyone can see you.
Can you see me okay?
Yeah, maybe.
Can you see me? I
no.
You're fine. I'm on my phone, so I chose video. So well, if you can see me, great. If you can't see me, that's okay too. So like Jen was saying, I'm letters E through K. So any of your kiddos who have the last names E through K, I am their counselor, and I'm really happy about it, really excited to be here. I know we have a really good unit of counselors this year, which is something I'm really excited about. And so what we tell all the students, we did CCR meetings all day today, and what we tell them is if they I'm not there, then confidence that any of your students. So your students are always going to be welcome, regardless of their last names. They're E through K, they're with me.
Great, thanks, Alex. You were breaking up a little, so I think what he was saying was, if you didn't get it, the counselors are meeting with all the senior CCR classes this week, which they've really been enjoying, getting to know the seniors a little and sharing an overview of senior year. And then next week, the counselors are going to be in the CCRs again, and I'll be with them going over score and some other things. So we'll get into that in the presentation. Okay, Brianna Trevino, students with last name L through RE.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I recognize some people on here that I worked with last year, and then also some people that I'm working with this year. So it's nice to see all of you join us tonight. Like Jen was saying, this is my second year with Ashland High School, and I'm super excited to be here. We have a really great group of counselors, and Jen and Karen. So this year I will be working with last names L through RE. So yeah, welcome.
Okay, and then we have Robert Joe, who is here. So hopefully, Robert, when you unmute and start speaking, pop in. There you are. Okay.
Can you hear me okay? Or
yes, we can hear you, and we can see a nice picture of you.
Oh yeah, I put the picture up because I'm at the dinner table with my kids and
Great.
my wife. But
Thank you
I
for
just
taking
want
a
to
moment.
I just want to tell the Ashland community I'm so excited to actually be back in Ashland. This is my first year as a school counselor. Again, I do have the letters RH through Z. I think we have a wonderful, wonderful team led by fearless leader Diane Barry. And I think we got off to a pretty exciting start. So we're working on CCR now with the seniors and working on career and college readiness, and we're excited.
Thanks, Robert. Go enjoy your dinner. Say hi to your family.
Well, I'll still be here, but I will. Thank you.
Okay. So as Robert said, Ratz is our counseling office manager and also our scholarship coordinator. So seniors get to know Karen pretty well. And then for those of you who have never met me before, I'm Jen Marsden. I'm the college and career specialist at AHS, and I also coordinate the Aspire program. And thank you, Robert, for, I try to move this back to being on the side, but maybe it's not going to do that. It's not letting me adjust. Anyway, thank you, Robert, for also mentioning Diane Barry. Some of you who have worked with Diane in the past, she's been a counselor here at AHS, I think, for like the last 5 or 6 years. And Diane has not left AHS and the district. She is now the head of counseling for all the counselors, behavioral specialists, CDS, child development specialists for the Ashland School District. So she's working at multiple sites, but she's also half-time at the high school supporting our AHS counseling staff. Okay, So tonight's goals, there are two main goals. And I see there's one question in the chat. Thank you, Brianna. Brianna's email was typed in there wrong. Thanks for pointing that out. If anyone wants Brianna's email, it is written correctly in the chat. So tonight's goals, learn how to utilize the resources that will help you plan for your education after high school, or for families here, help your students plan for their education after high school. And also to start to understand the importance of finding a school or a program that is a good fit for you, the student. And also we'll talk a lot about the different issues that students have to think about when applying to colleges, which also include financial fit, which involves the students' families. Okay, so a lot of students get stressed, overwhelmed, their families get stressed, overwhelmed when thinking about life after high school. Up until this year, for the last 12, 13 years, it's been pretty straightforward for students and parents. You start kindergarten, you go to school, you go to first grade, you go to second grade, whether you move, go to a different school, the path is pretty much circumscribed for students in our country, unless they're doing some really crazy kind of unschooling, different kind of thing. So suddenly we kind of open the door wide and say, okay, what do you want to do next? And even if a student knows that they're thinking college, there's still kind of the overarching feeling that, wow, I could go, there's all these different colleges. I could take this pathway or that pathway. I need to decide what I want to study now. Do I need to get on a pathway that's going to lead me to a career? It can be overwhelming. For some students, it might be pretty straightforward, actually. They have an idea where they want to go to college, say OSU. They've been to the campus, they really like it. They have an idea what they want to major in, or have no idea what they want to major in, but know that OSU has all sorts of majors and it would be a really great campus for them. They've talked to their family. They have a sense that their family has the financial resources to afford a school like OSU. So senior year might not be that stressful in terms of making a plan. They might want to apply to community colleges because of the Oregon Promise and have, which we'll get into later, which is a state grant to help make community college affordable for all students. But it might not be that stressful. Other students might be applying to some private schools, some state schools, some community colleges, might be looking farther than Oregon, looking to the East Coast, looking to the Midwest. We have students who are looking at international schools. So there, for some students, it might be more of that second A to B, a little more topsy-turvy, a little more planning, a little more research. But we like to talk to students, and in the CCRs we've been stressing, it's all about next steps, finding a next step that's going to be a good fit for you. So I want to start out by just letting you all know about a lot of the resources we have available at AHS. If you're a junior or senior parent, or you've read the Grizogram, there are links to a lot of these in the email that I sent out to junior and senior families this last week, and in the Grizogram. So the AHS College Handbook, I have a hard copy right here, and you are all welcome to pick up a hard copy at some point if you want to come on campus to get that. One sec. I can't see myself anymore. Can you see the handbook? So I don't know if I'm like standing in the camera. Thank you. So you can pick up a hard copy, but there are also, the PDF is available on the AHS website in the College and Career Center. And before we end tonight, I will take you out of this PowerPoint and show you directly on the AHS website where all these resources live, to make sure that everyone knows how to find them. There's so much information in the handbook, and I'm going to be referring to it a lot in the slide. And actually, I should have put the link. Actually, let me do that right now. Actually, I'm going to show you the website so you can open a tab and go and find that, or I will put the link in the chat. So here is the new and improved Ashland High School website. Can you see that? I can't see any of you now.
No, you're not sharing your screen anymore.
Okay. Oh, that's why.
When you shifted, you probably lost the shared screen, or you
I
need to
shared my
resume it.
whole desktop, so that usually avoids that part, but
But when you switched back, you lost the, there you are.
okay, awesome.
There you go.
So here's the new and improved Ashland High School website. So if you go to students here and a number of other places, but this is the most direct, you can find the College and Career Center. And right at the top of the College and Career Center are a bunch of quick links to places on the website that are really helpful for students and parents. And one right here is the AHS College Handbook. I will now copy and paste this in the chat. So if you want to click on it and be referring to it or scrolling through it at all as I'm talking about it, you can. So there it is. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second and put that in the chat because it's really hard to use the chat when I'm sharing my screen. Okay, there's the link for anyone who wants to click on that and then have it saved on their desktop or refer to it now. So I will share my screen again. And one other thing that I want to draw your attention to on the website, since we are here now, there's just a little intro to the College and Career Center and the information that went out to junior and senior parents, ACT and SAT updates, information about Aspire. Soon I will be posting here a list of college visits that are planned for the fall and also other information sessions that we'll be doing during advisory for students on Mondays and Fridays. So this is a good place to kind of check and see what's going on. Here is the link to forms, which I'm going to refer to later. So now I won't have to go back here. So when we talk about letters of recommendation, request forms for teachers and counselors, those all live on this page, as well as a fillable activity chart and the fillable service learning form for students who need to turn in community service or work hours to fulfill the service learning requirement. Okay. Now I will go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so one of the resources we have available for students, and if your student is a senior, they would have had last spring, is SCORE. And SCORE is a college and career search exploration platform that we started using at AHS a couple of years ago. So many great aspects of it. One of them, which is the youth science assessment, which most of our juniors got the opportunity to do last spring. And if you want to learn more about SCORE, there's a whole presentation on it from last spring on the website for parents. And we're going to be back in CCR, the counselors and I, next week, and kind of helping seniors dive back into SCORE. We're going to be in computer labs with them, and they're going to be able to learn more about how they can use SCORE to help them this year. Youth science is great for getting language to describe your aptitudes, great information to put on resumes and in cover letters, and also will really help them with personal statements and essays for college. Also great information about colleges and how to build college lists and search for colleges based on students' interests. So a really great resource. The College and Career Center, I am in there here right now. I'm so excited to have students back on campus this year, coming to visit me. I've been doing a lot of meetings with students and parents together, both in person and on Zoom. So I really do love now having the ability to use Zoom because it gives a lot more flexibility to meet with parents and students together, either after school or times that are more convenient for parents. So send students, if you're parents, if they haven't been to the College and Career Center and gotten to meet me, please encourage them to reach out. Aspire is a program I coordinate. And for those of you who don't know about Aspire, we have mentors, volunteers from the community who are really knowledgeable about the college application process and the various pathways and available to work with students one-on-one. One of my mentors is here tonight, Gary Anderson. If you happen to see him in the little boxes, thanks for being here, Gary. And like you've already heard, we have our CCR classes for seniors. They get a lot of support in there. And for those of you who are here who are juniors or sophomores or families of juniors and sophomores or freshmen, that's something to look forward to senior year, where seniors have a lot of access to information that can help them as they move forward. Okay, I thought Brianna was texting me to tell me something was wrong, but she just popped off, so that's good. Okay, and also as I mentioned, college visits and info nights like this, to keep your eye out for them. I tell students the college visits are such a great way, not only to learn about schools that you're interested in, but to just go to some, even if you've never heard of the school. Like if you're interested in private schools, but have never heard of Pacific or Linfield, or aren't really interested in Lewis and Clark, come to one of their visits, because you will learn about what colleges have to offer. So you might not even know colleges have radio stations, or some colleges have a freshman seminar that all freshmen take and are reading the same books and are talking about these same rich topics. And you might think, wow, that's cool. I want to try to find more schools that have that. Or wow, that school has no general education requirements. I'm really interested in that. I just want to dive into my major. Or some schools have a block system. So it's also a great way for students who are looking at more competitive schools where they might be interviewing with admissions reps to get comfortable interacting with admission reps and asking questions, because I know a lot of students are nervous about that. So I really encourage students to attend those visits. Okay, I kind of went into SCORE. So this is a little bit more about SCORE. We don't need to go into that now. Oh, and parents, your student can invite you to their SCORE account. I don't know exactly what you have access to, but I think if they build college lists, then you can look at their college lists. So that's also something to think about. And if you have that kind of relationship with your student, my daughter would have said, no, that's too much in my business. Thanks, but no thanks. I'll tell you what I want to tell you about my SCORE account. But I know other students might be happy to have you involved in that. In the beginning, anybody could make their own SCORE account. And so I thought that was a great way for parents to also make their own SCORE account and take the U Science assessment. It's a really interesting thing to talk about, your aptitudes and strengths. I know Gary, one of my mentors who is here, did that when we had the opportunity. And if you're interested in doing that, let me know and I'll see if it's still an option for parents to be able to take that U Science assessment. Okay, so now I'm going to start referring to the college handbook. And you'll note I have the pages, but you probably don't have it in front of you, just to kind of give you a sense of what's in there. So for juniors and junior families who are here, the first page is a junior checklist. I build the college handbook usually every year. I update it, but I haven't with COVID because there's so many things up in the air. But the first page is a junior checklist. And I will update it, I'm hoping sometime this winter, February, and so that this year's juniors will have a brand new college handbook that's more updated to take them through their senior year. That's usually how I do it. The second page is a senior checklist. The third page is a great compilation of both print and online resources for students and parents. I am still a big proponent of print. There's a lot of great books out there. I have these chunky handbooks here. The FISC Guide to Colleges. I think these are awesome to maybe, if this is a conversation you and your students are having, to have on the kitchen table or wherever is kind of a common gathering place where, you know, people eat their cereal, and you could be kind of browsing through it and say, wow, I'd never heard of Willamette. Do you know that's in the Colleges That Change Lives books, and they give great aid, and it's right here in Oregon. Hey, maybe you want to check it out next time you're having cereal or a cup of tea, and I'm going to put a sticky on that page. A lot of parents have said that has been a good conversation starter, having some hardback, paperback books around. And if you want more information on those kind of resources, I'm happy to talk with you and give you some more ideas. ACT and SAT. So with COVID, that's been all over the place. We are, and it was in the email, offering both the ACT and the SAT here at AHS again. The dates that are in the handbook obviously are not correct. They were for last year, but you can easily find those on our website or in the emails that I've been sending out, or the grisogram. So students register for the ACT and the SAT completely online. The test dates are filling up because we are still restricted to a certain number of seats that are distanced due to COVID, and we can't have the normal number of students testing. Just on ACT and SAT tests in general, the University of Oregon, OSU, all the Oregon State schools right before COVID even started had already decided they were no longer requiring test scores for admissions. The University of California schools and the California state schools also made that decision. Some of our state schools hadn't decided whether they would still use scores for scholarship consideration. Because of COVID, they have not been using scores for that. The honors colleges at some of our state schools also have made scores optional for now, but I've encouraged students who are applying to the honors colleges are hoping to get merit aid at the state schools. If they think their SAT or ACT scores might help them, then sure, it's worth, doing a little prep and taking the tests. But if they're great students and they're going to show that they're great students by their transcript, I really don't see the point of submitting SAT or ACT to our state schools. I have heard from some parents that some of the private schools are using the ACT and SAT for placement in classes since COVID started. So I'm not going to tell students absolutely not to take it, but they could look into what the schools they're applying to are using them for or not using them for. Almost every private school has also made ACT and SAT tests optional now during COVID. I encourage students just to make sure there's a school that's your dream school. Don't assume they're not going to ask you for the ACT or SAT. So just go ahead and check if you're a senior. Again, for the competitive schools, if you think your ACT or SAT score will help you, you definitely want to take the test and send the scores to the schools. And by help you, I mean, it depends on the school you're applying to. Like if you are in the 75th percentile and above, when you look at the average scores for that school, which you can find online or in college handbooks, you definitely want to send your test scores. So I've been meeting with lots of students and parents who are trying to figure out if their student should test. I'm talking about seniors. And it's really individual based on that student's goals. Another thing for the ACT and SAT, if students qualify for free and reduced lunch, they can get a fee waiver to take the SAT and the ACT for free. They can also get fee waivers to apply to colleges for free and get tuition waivers when paying for dual credit courses at SOU. So I've really been encouraging students who have qualified for free and reduced lunch in the past, but haven't signed up in high school because they don't eat lunch on campus or they haven't been on campus for a year and a half, to take the time to talk to their families about signing up for free and reduced lunch this year. So I'm going to take a breather. Any questions, burning questions about SAT, ACT? So I don't have anything about PSAT in here, but I want to make sure juniors and sophomore families that are here know we are offering the PSAT here at AHS on October 13th, which is a Wednesday. Traditionally, the PSAT is offered during a school day. In the past, the state has paid for all of our sophomores to test, and we automatically test all sophomores if they are there that day. That is the plan for this year, I've been told. We also give juniors the option to test, and that is also how we're going to do that this year. You should start seeing in the Grisogram, in the announcements, information about this. I really encourage juniors who are thinking of going to a four-year school to take the PSAT. It's great practice. And if they are top students, the PSAT junior year, if they get really high scores, can qualify them to be National Merit Scholars. So juniors will sign up on campus. Usually that's in the main office. They just go in. It might be, since we've gotten so much more tech savvy the last couple of years, it might be a form, a Microsoft form that they, click on the link and sign up. Usually there's a minimal cost, like $14 or $15 for juniors to test, unless they qualify for free reduced lunch. So any PSAT questions? Okay, so I noticed since we started a little late and I really want to finish by 6:30, I'm going to try to speed up because I've got a half an hour to cover a lot of material. But I want to make a plug right now for those of you who might sneak off because you've got dinner or other plans. At the end of this, there's a slide that talks about 2 information nights that are coming up in October and the beginning of November. One is just on 4-year colleges and universities. So we're going to dive way more into the 4-year college and universities and the application process for those. And then there's also going to be a 2-year college and professional career school night. I think that one is the first week of November. So you might not get all the information you want tonight about those different pathways, but kind of look for those dates and keep those on your calendar. So I'm not going to dive into this, but there's a whole section in the college handbook. And when we talk about finding a good fit school or a good fit pathway, these are the questions that we really want students and families to consider when they're helping their students find a pathway that's a good fit. And on the resources page, the online and print resources in the handbook, there's a little passage at the top. And I really think it's true that this whole process of finding a school that's a good fit is really for the students a great opportunity for self-exploration, reflection. What's important to me? You know, what do I want in a college? What's the kind of culture I'm looking for? Do I really have any idea, you know, what I want to do? I've been thinking I want to be a doctor, but maybe I need, you know, want to think a little bit more about that. Getting on campuses is so important. I've been hearing from so many of our students who are finally getting on campuses who I talked to last spring, and this was their top school. And then they finally got out and visited some campuses, and it kind of shifted their feel, because there definitely is a feel to different schools. Sometimes you shouldn't use that, right? Because maybe it's a rainy day and you didn't get a chance to have breakfast and you're in a grumpy mood and you don't like your tour guide. That's not necessarily a reason that school might not be a good fit for you. So sometimes families have to talk students a little off the ledge and like, wow, this was a great fit for you in some ways, but now you hate it. So think about these things. And like I mentioned, you know, cost. Most of our kids get into most of the schools that they apply to. Of course, there are those, you know, top competitive schools that are potentially a great fit for some of our super academic kids, but you know, the admittance rate is 7%, 10%, 15%. So they might not get in. What it comes down to most of our students is finding a school that they feel, you know, meets all of their needs academically, the culture they're looking for, but also finding a school that's going to be a good financial fit for them and their family. It's just become more and more important. Families don't want to go into debt. This is really shocking for a lot of parents. I've learned this, that students can't take out the kind of loans that, well, my generation, which is probably older than some of your generations, but that students can't take out thousands and thousands of dollars worth of loans. This is surprising to a lot of parents. The federal government only lets freshmen take out $5,500 in student loans. I'm glad, because I don't want our students coming out with the kind of debt that their teachers have. The teachers in CCR will share this openly, you know, that they're, you know, $80,000, $100,000 in debt, because when they were going to school, the financial aid offices would say, oh yeah, take these loans, you can live on this, then you don't have to work as much and you can focus on school. So all colleges have what's called a net price calculator on their website. The cost of college is not a mystery. There is a budget sheet for the cost of attendance for all the Oregon schools, from community colleges to private schools, to kind of, if you haven't wrapped your head around this, you should, because your kids are hearing about it. And it's really important. When I got here 12 years ago, parents would often say, hey, I just want my student to apply everywhere they're interested in, and just to throw Stanford in, you know, just to see. And then we'll figure it out. We'll see, you know, what it costs. Well, that's a lot of work for students and a lot of stress, because all of these colleges have supplementary information they're going to ask students to write about. It's a lot of work. And then parents end up potentially being the dream killers in the spring when kids get into the schools they really want to go to, but families, when they really look at the financial aid packages, realize this really is not a good financial fit for our family. So I will be encouraging your seniors, if they haven't already, if you haven't had this discussion as a family, and junior and sophomore families, it's good to start wrapping your head around this. Parents and families don't need to tell students how much they make or what their assets are, but it's really to make this an easier process, a more fulfilling process, a less heartbreaking process for a lot of students and families, for students to have a sense of what their families can contribute each year to their education is super helpful. So if it's nothing, great. You let your student know that you're supportive and will help them do their research and support them in any way you can. If I tell students, if you have a parent or a grandparent who's been saying, hey, don't worry, we have you covered, we've been saving, we have 529s, we won the lottery, that's awesome. But then you need to ask that parent or grandparent, okay, I'm so thankful, but by have me covered, do you mean $30,000 a year U of O have me covered? Or do you mean $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year Reed have me covered? Because those are very different. And for a lot of our families, $45,000 or $50,000 a year for Lewis and Clark versus 25 or maybe 23 or for U of O because the student gets some merit aid, that's a big difference, $20,000 a year, $30,000 a year. And so I tell parents, well, they'll say, well, we want them to try and get in, and maybe they'll get, Lewis and Clark gives out 5 full ride tuition scholarships a year. We have students get it. So then you just tell your student, hey, if you get into Lewis and Clark and you get that full tuition, yes, we can make the $25,000 a year happen. If you don't, and it's going to be 50, then U of O honors is probably going to be a better fit. So sorry to go on and on about this. It's important. It's probably one of the most important things that parents and students can talk about when it comes to kind of planning for college. So any questions before I go on? Okay. So community colleges, like I said, I'm going to kind of glaze over this pretty quickly, but come back to the meeting later this fall to get more information. So a lot of our students and families aren't really aware of all the community colleges in Oregon and how different they are in terms of what they offer and the feel of their campuses. So you've probably seen RCC, which is kind of that urban campus downtown, really great programs and a lot of cool buildings and studios and labs. They also have their White City campus, their Table Rock campus, where all their CTE programs are based, which is really cool. But a lot of campuses like Central Oregon Community College in Bend, Southwestern Community College in Coos Bay, Portland Community College, they have much more of a campus feel. They feel more like SOU. Some of them have dorms like COCC in Bend, Southwestern in Coos Bay. A lot of our students who go to PCC in Portland or Lane in Eugene, they live in complexes that are not dorms, but they are set up kind of as apartment type dorms run by these huge corporations that have got really smart and built these places in all sorts of university towns where students can live in apartments and have that dorm kind of social experience, but have a kitchen and have laundry and also be able to go to a community college that doesn't have dorms. So that's really been a great option for a lot of our students. So a lot of students and parents don't realize there's no minimum GPA requirements to go to a community college. The applications are really easy to do. They're online, they are free. A couple have application fees, but you don't have to pay them if you can't afford to do so. So I have a lot of students who really did not do well their freshman, sophomore year, and their GPA is pretty low, and they're realizing, oh, I can't, my dream has been to go to OSU, but I can't. No problem. You start at a community college, you start fresh. They're never going to see your high school transcript. You will then transfer to a state school and they will just be looking at your community college grades. No ACT or SAT tests required, lower tuition costs. So many career pathways. I'm not going to go into this now, but in the college handbook, and it's great when you look at it as a PDF because you can blow up this section. It's a few years old, but what I like about it is it has all these certificate and 2-year career track pathways at the community colleges along the sides. And then on the top, it lists all the different community colleges. And it really, just scrolling through that can give you a sense of all these career pathways that are out there now that are really surprising, where students can go for a year or 2 years and come out with a degree or certificate in this valley and make more than I'll ever make with my master's degree. And I talked to students about this in CCR, and I love what I do. I knew getting a master's in education, I was not going to get rich. And that's also, you know, finding a good fit, right? What career pathway is going to be fulfilling to you? What type of lifestyle do you want to have? Do you want to be a millionaire, or is that not important to you? So these are the kind of things for them to think about. But the career pathways at the community colleges are amazing. Physical therapy assistants, occupational therapy assistants, electronics, the allied health field, so many pathways there. I could go on and on, but it's been a great option for our students. Also a great option for students, like I said, who want to start at a community college, can get a lot of their general ed requirements out of the way and then transfer to a 4-year. And also we now have the Oregon Promise Grant, which I'll talk about in the financial aid section, where students can get a good grant from the state to help them pay for community college. Keep in mind that does have a 2.5 minimum GPA. So I've got a few seniors teetering around that 2.5. If they're under a 2.5, they have until the end of the year to get up to a 2.5. But it's also something to keep in mind for juniors and sophomore families. If you're thinking community college, to make sure your student stays up above that 2.5 GPA. So any questions? Okay. Okay, and so this is really brief, but I will go into it more on the community college and professional career schools night. So these are just some examples of the kind of private vocational schools our students go to: culinary, massage therapy, mechanics, cosmetology, a lot of great programs. Aviation has been popular the last number of years. Really important to check if community colleges also offer a pathway in some of these things, because many community colleges do. And to really look at the comparison of the programs, the pros and cons, which will differ from student to student in terms of some students want to do more general education. Some students want an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. Some students just want to, you know, go and do their certificate and only, you know, take classes in culinary or only take classes in massage therapy. So something to think about. There's a page in the handbook that has some suggestions for how to do your research on this, but I love talking to students and families about all the different options out there. So please reach out to me, students and families, if you have questions about that. Job Corps is also an awesome option for students and students in CCR and also younger students. I will be bringing in Job Corps reps to talk. And so just a brief description of Job Corps. For those of you who don't know what it is, you can Google it. Job Corps is a federal program. They have campuses all over the country. I think there might be 8 to 10 of them in Oregon, where students who qualify can go live on their campuses and get training in so many different kind of career fields, from firefighting to culinary to graphic design to healthcare professions. So really, for the right students, a really great potential option. To qualify, students either have to be relatively low income, but also if a student has a 504 or an IEP, they also could qualify for Job Corps. And like I tell the seniors when I'm going through these kinds of presentations with them, and juniors as well, because they have to come and they have to listen to all these options, and they're like, well, I'm not going to a 4-year university, or I'm going to a community college. to listen to all the different options. And I specifically talk about Job Corps as one of those options because a lot of students are thinking college, Job Corps is not going to be for them. Their family makes too much money. They don't have a 504 or an IEP, which is totally fine, right? But they might know someone or might meet someone that this could be an excellent option for. So pretty much all of our seniors, or at least a large percentage of them, are working now or want to find a job this year. I tell them, hey, you might be working and your buddy at work is saying, yeah, you know, I haven't been in school, but I'd really like to become a firefighter, or I'd really like to do this. And Job Corps is open to young people until they're 26. And so I said, hey, you know, you can then say, hey, I heard about this program, Job Corps, that's free, where you can go. And so, I mean, these are things, and the community college pathways, we have lots of students who go to a 4-year and then come back and do a 2-year degree or a certificate at a community college because they went to a 4-year, they had an amazing experience, they studied philosophy or political science, something they love, but then they realized they're kind of interested in physical therapy and maybe they want to become a physical therapy assistant and explore that pathway. So great that they got a little information about it and know that something like that exists when they were in high school. Okay, so our Oregon Public Universities, and I better speed this up, so they do have admissions requirements, and there's a whole page on that in the handbook. Most of them are looking for a 3.0 or higher. Some will take students with a lower GPA. They're really looking for a C- or better in all the core classes. Like I said, ACT, SAT are no longer required. And the majors and minors really vary by school. So when I have a kid come to me whose their dream has been to go to U of O, but they want to study engineering, it's kind of a disconnect since U of O doesn't really have engineering majors. So the sooner they figure that out, the major minor kind of graphic in the handbook is a few years old. So I always encourage students and families to, you know, go to the school's website because they're changing all the time. Community colleges are adding programs or deleting programs, same things with the state schools. And if students are top students and they're looking at private universities or just looking at state schools, all of our state schools have honors colleges or honor programs that are really a great fit for some students. They kind of give you a smaller college feel within the larger state university. You might have specific honors classes, or you might get special sections of your chemistry class just for honors students. So they all have, they vary depending on the college. And for some students, it's a great fit. For other students, they don't really want what the honors college has to offer, and they just want to go to OSU and not do OSU honors, even they got in, though they got in. So something to check out. And Oregon Public Universities have deadlines, like the private schools. A lot of students don't realize that, and they come up pretty quickly. For U of O, I think it's January 15th. I think February 1st or February 15th for OSU. So look for those. Parents and students sometimes get confused because it will say priority deadline and then rolling admissions, which means, yes, your student can apply after the priority deadline, but often schools will not consider them for merit scholarships after the priority deadline. So you really want to hit those priority deadlines. I really encourage our students to keep SOU open as an option if it's not their first choice or their plan for after high school. SOU is an amazing campus, amazing professors. Lots of our students want to get out of town, totally understand that. But like I tell them, you want to keep all your options open. Life changes. We know that now. I don't even have to give examples of how things can happen that will make your plans change. And so I will encourage students who are looking at 4 years to apply to SOU. We'll have admissions on the spot where it's absolutely free to do it. There's no essay. It's just easy to jump online and do that, because what happens is students will decide in July or August that they want to go to SOU. They apply, they get in, but then they don't get the merit scholarship they would have gotten. And those are usually $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. And that's really sad when they don't get that money. So important to keep in mind. Same with community colleges. students who are determined, I'm definitely going to a 4-year, I don't want to do the Oregon Promise application, which really takes about 5 minutes. I do not want to apply to a community college. I pretty much really twist their arms to do it and really encourage your student to do it, because we have lots of students who take the community college pathway at the last minute. Sometimes it's because the 4 years end up being way more expensive than they think they're going to be, or life changes and they decide, okay, I'm just going to stay in Ashland for a year. COVID happened. I'm going to do Oregon Promise community college classes online. So many of our students did that, that graduated in, what was it, 2020, after COVID hit, because they didn't want to pay $60,000 a year to take private school classes online. So they deferred and they took advantage of the Oregon Promise. So, and that's another thing that has a deadline, right? And so I also have students who are like, no way, I'm not going to school. I'm going to work. I'm going to take a gap year. And then they come to me in June or July and they want to go to a community college because their friends are going to Bend and they're going to get an apartment. And so now they want to go to COCC and now they're not going to get that money. So that's why I'm kind of a broken record on that. So if your kids are complaining, she keeps telling me to apply for the Oregon Promise, say, well, why don't you just do it? So she'll get off your back and maybe you might need it. Okay, and the Western Undergraduate Exchange, WUI schools, another great way for our students to go out to state. I won't specifically go into those schools. Some are named here, but if your student's interested in state schools, you could check out WUI schools. And I suggest just Google the name of the school, Chico State WUI. You'll get a link, takes you right to their WUI page, and it will tell you how their WUI works. Like if you get in, it's automatic. You get the cheaper tuition, or no, it's a competitive scholarship and we only, give 1% of out-of-state students the WUI rate. So reach out to me or come to the 4-year college night if you want to learn more about this. And always like to talk about our California public universities because they are very popular with a lot of our students, especially early in senior year before they really realize what the price tag is. So if you look at the WUI page in the handbook, none of the UC schools like Berkeley, UCLA, UC San Diego are WUI schools. They don't need out-of-state or international students because, paying 1.5 times in-state, because they have more than enough people willing to pay 4 times in-state tuition to send their students there. A lot of the California state schools, though, are WUI, like Chico and Humboldt State, and they really are a great option for our students. I've had a number of students come in because I've been in their classes telling them that the California state schools have a different requirement in terms of visual and performing arts than our Oregon schools. We don't have a VPA requirement. The California schools want students to have 2 semesters of a visual or performing art in the same genre. And so I've had some seniors getting that in their schedule senior year because they want to keep Cal Poly open or another California school. By the way, Cal Poly, their rep contacted me today and she will be here in October in person to visit. So keep that on your radar if your student is interested in Cal Poly. It's been a great school for a lot of our students. Okay, and then of course, all the private colleges and universities. So really important, these schools require letters of recommendation. And students apply to private colleges through the Common Application. It's called Common App in common language. A lot of our seniors are already working on Common App. It opens up usually August 1st or the beginning of August, so seniors can kind of get a jump start on working on that. So if you have a student who's a senior and applying to private schools, they are going to need to request letters of recommendation from 1 or 2 teachers, depending on the colleges they're applying to, and their school counselor. So where I showed you on the website under forms are the letter of recommendation request forms. These are really, students don't need to stress out about them, or parents. It's just a way for the student to give their teacher, their counselor, a little bit more information about themselves. Their counselor, even when our counselors have been here for years and know their students, once the student reaches out to them and says they're going to need a letter of recommendation, our counselors will schedule an interview appointment where they will sit with the student for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, just depending on how it goes and what kind of information the student wants to share, so that the counselor can then craft a really helpful letter for that student, because the letter of recommendation from the counselor is one way to maybe get a little more information about the student that doesn't show up somewhere else in their application. So students should think about that. Parents can think about that to kind of coach their students on some things they might want to talk to their counselors about or in their teachers about that they might be helpful to include in their letters. Okay, so any questions about that? And we're going to be having an info session on the Common App for seniors during on September 27th. I heard someone. Someone have a question or a comment?
I have a question, Jen, about Lewis and Clark. Can you hear me?
Great.
Is that, I'm looking on their website, it looks like they require the SATs.
Are they saying it's required now?
Well, just it has a little thing. Looks like,
Even before COVID, Lewis and Clark was a test optional school.
oh,
There's a great website called fairtest.org, which lists all the schools that either don't require tests, don't want to see them, don't care, or are test optional. So that surprises me that it says they require the SAT at Lewis and Clark. But if you want to check in, I can't see you, so I'm not sure who this is. If you want to stay on after, and we could look at the website and see what you're seeing.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, so the application process, and I'm definitely going to go a little over 6:30, so I definitely won't be offended if any of you just pop out. Feel free to leave whenever you need to, and you could always watch the recording later. So the application process really helps students who are applying to multiple schools if they can get a little organized, review the admissions requirements. Some students really like to make spreadsheets, have all this information for each school, have cost of attendance, just all the information that's important to them. Like I have students who want to work at a radio station. Do they have a radio station? How easy it is to be involved. I have students who their religion is important to them. So they want to see if there are organizations on campus that they can join and be with like-minded people. So getting organized, if it's just a binder or a specific pile on your table that has all the college information, I really encourage that. Transcript requests, if students are applying through Common App to schools, their counselor will upload their transcript to Common App. Students at state schools, they need to, if they're not applying through Common App. So I didn't mention that. Common App now, there are a lot of public state schools like U of O and OSU that are on Common App. This is kind of a recent development. If students are applying to private schools, it's fine for them to apply to OSU, U of O through Common App or any other public schools that are on there. If they are not having to use Common App, please discourage them from using it. It's so much more work than just applying to U of O through the U of O website. You don't need letters of recommendation if you're just applying to U of O, unless you're applying to the Honors College. So a lot of students just started using Common App and asking for letters of recommendation when they didn't need them. And it causes it's a lot of work for teachers and counselors to write letters of recommendation. They really want to spend time and do a good job. So if your student doesn't need them, or they think they'd like them for scholarships later in the year, just encourage them not to ask for letters of rec now and to wait until later in the winter or spring.
So
Question?
sorry. Oh.
Go ahead, Eva.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to just kind of ask you one more time, just so my daughter's interested at U of O, OSU, and Lewis and Clark. So she would need to do the Common App.
Yes, because Lewis and Clark, I'm pretty sure Lewis and Clark, the only way to apply is through Common App. They might also be on the Coalition application. For those of you who haven't heard of the Coalition application, it was some brainchild of some colleges a number of years ago to kind of make a new, more inclusive application than Common App. And a lot of the top schools were going to switch over to the Coalition application. That hasn't happened. The only school I know that solely uses the Coalition application is University of Washington. So unless your student is applying to University of Washington, which is kind of like applying to UC Berkeley or any of the UCs, it's very expensive out of state. I I would not use the coalition application. Okay, so the Common App, I mentioned that, letters of rec, activity chart. We're going to be working in CCR, students will be working on their activity charts and personal statements for scholarships. I think they're starting that in the next week or so. And then also, since we're running late, I won't dive into this, but when students are applying to private colleges, primarily the more competitive schools, there are various pathways to apply regular decision, which is what we all think of as the regular application process. And then there's also early decision, ED, at some schools, and early action. Those are pathways where you apply usually November 1st or November 15th. Stanford had to get out there and make theirs October 15th. You apply and you find out by winter break whether you've gotten in, whether you've been rejected or deferred to the regular admission pool. Early action, not binding, meaning if you apply, you think you're a good candidate, they admit you by winter break and you have until May 1st, like the rest of the colleges, to let them know if you are going to attend. Early decision is binding, meaning if a student applies there and they have a whole contract, your counselor will call you in to go over that you plan to go there. And so early decision is only for students who have visited a campus, know it's their dream school, really want to go there, kind of have looked at the financial piece and feel like it's a good fit for their family. So any questions on that before I move on? And I'm happy to meet with students' parents to talk about the pros and cons of early decision. Early action, there are definitely pros for students. It's a smaller applicant pool. So for some of those competitive schools, it is a little easier to get in early decision and early action. Okay, and financial aid, this is just going to be a really brief overview. We're going to have a financial aid night, Financial Aid 101, coming up on September 29th, where I will go into detail about all of this. All financial aid revolves around the FAFSA, the free application for federal and student aid. That does not go live until October 1st. So it's one of the first things I talk to seniors about, because they'll start hearing their parents say, we have to do the FAFSA, we have to get it done. If you log on to the FAFSA site now, you can do a FAFSA. It's the wrong one. It's the 2021-2022 FAFSA. So that's for students who are in college right now this school year. So if you as a parent or a student hear friends talking about that they've already done the FAFSA and why haven't you done yours, don't make them feel bad that they did the wrong one, because they'll just have to get on October 1st and they kind of already have figured it out. So they'll do the 2022-23 FAFSA when it becomes available October 1st. So before students start to work on their FAFSA, they will make a FAFSA ID, which is called the FSA ID, just to confuse people a little more. It's kind of like your electronic signature, your PIN number for your ATM card. So students will do this in their CCR classes. I'm going into all the CCRs to do a financial aid 101 the last week of September and explain all this to them in detail. And they've already gotten some of it in my intro to post-high school pathways the last couple of weeks. And then that first week of October and into the second week, seniors will be in computer labs and they will get their FSA ID and they will start their FAFSA. Most of them will complete the whole student part of the FAFSA, and then I will send them home to get their parent to do the parent part. If you are a legal guardian, you will not be on your student's FAFSA. I really encourage parents who have never done the FAFSA to come to the financial aid information night on the 29th or watch one of my financial aid nights from last year. It'll give you a lot of specific information about how to make completing the FAFSA really pretty easy. If you did it 20 years ago or 10 years ago, it's much easier now. There's an IRS data retrieval tool where you can just link with the IRS and it automatically populates your student's FAFSA with your tax information. It doesn't say on here, so for senior families, the tax information that the 2022-23 FAFSA will use is tax information from 2020. So that is the information you're going to need if you're one of those people like me and my husband, who always does things late and files extensions, you're going to want to have your 2020 taxes completed sooner than later. And so talk to me if you have questions about that. And then, like I said, well, actually the Oregon Opportunity and Oregon Promise grants are also great options of financial aid for our students based on need. The Oregon Opportunity Grant, it is like our federal Pell Grant, which is what the FAFSA qualifies students for, along with other financial aid from the federal government and from institutions, 4 years and community colleges. One plug, I go into this in depth at the financial aid night, but one of the reasons to get the FAFSA done sooner than later, especially if your student is ready to apply for schools, they know they want to go to U of O, they know they want to go to OSU. Both of those schools also have early application, early acceptance kind of pathways. Apply early, complete the FAFSA. The sooner those colleges have a student's FAFSA, have a student's application, the sooner they can bundle their financial aid packages. So if you qualify for federal student aid, so if your income is relatively low and you might qualify for the federal Pell Grant, there are also federal grants. One of them, the big one, is the FSEOG grant, the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. The Pell Grant money doesn't run out, but these other pots of money that are federal, such as Work Study, they run out. And so I noticed the last number of years, more and more of our students that qualify for that aid are getting bigger pots of that money. And I think it's because they're applying earlier. So I really encourage you to get that done as soon as possible. And for students applying to private schools, a lot of private schools, in addition to the FAFSA, use what's called the CSS profile, which is housed by the College Board. And unlike the FAFSA, it is not free. It costs you, like everything with the College Board, a certain amount to just fill it out. And every time you send it to a school, there's another charge. So if your student qualifies for free and reduced lunch, that's something else that could potentially be free if you sign up for free and reduced lunch. So any questions about that really quick, fast financial aid overview? And then scholarships, another part of financial aid. And we're going to spend a lot of time giving students time to, like I said, work on their personal statements. Our scholarship season for seniors really kicks off November 1st when some of the scholarships go live, and they'll get all sorts of information about that in the back of the college handbook. On some of these pages are information about a lot of the OSAC and local scholarships. I encourage students and families to look through those. There is something for everyone. Our largest dollar-wise scholarships are for students pursuing career vocational pathways like engineering, diesel mechanics, electronics, cosmetology, massage therapy, aviation, the Lithia Springs Rotary, and a number of the other clubs in town specifically give scholarships to students pursuing those kind of career pathways. They give, I think last year, I think their largest maybe was $8,000. They've given $10,000 scholarships to students who are becoming firefighters, going into law enforcement, nursing, engineering, mechanics. So definitely something for everyone. And like it says on here, a lot of the private schools have huge endowments, right? So it could actually be cheaper for a student who can get into one of these more competitive private schools to go to one of those schools because they're considered no loan or they meet a family's financial need than it is for them to go to a school like U of O. So if you want more information about that, reach out to me. I'll go into it in more detail, both at the financial aid night on September 29th, but also at the four-year college pathways night in October. This is just a little more information about scholarships. I mentioned the main scholarship season starts in November. Those applications usually aren't due until mid-February and March 1st. There are some scholarships that come up earlier. So students will start hearing in the announcements about the Elks Scholarship. It will be posted in the Grizogram. That's a scholarship that starts locally, and then students can advance to the regional, state, and national level. So that's one to look out for. And then also on the College and Career Center Financial Aid and Scholarships page, there is a link to other current scholarships that our scholarship coordinator updates every Friday. So that's where she'll put scholarships that are available now, that are national scholarships or state scholarships that information gets sent to us that we want to make our families aware of. Okay, so that is the end of the PowerPoint. And so here are some of those information sessions I mentioned that are coming up if you want to jot them down or just keep an eye out. Oh, I didn't put the date. November 3rd, that community college one. I kind of updated this yesterday. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording so that you all can ask questions if you'd like.